and welcome to the last of our 2020 Rehash looking back episodes of Predictocast. I'm Josh, and joining me as always is Skinner. Hey, Skinner.
Hey, Josh. Hey, all you hunks out there.
That's right. It's the end of the year. We're just past Christmas time. We're looking forward to 2021 to put the 2020 disaster in the rear view. I mean, I know things are not going to magically get better in 2021, but let's put some positive thinking into the world, and let's make 2021 the year of the hunk. And that's why on this episode we are looking back at the 1987 cult classic Hunk. And we couldn't do it alone. Let me just get that out of the way. We are joined by friend of the show and all around hunky guy, Phil Gonzales. Hi, Phil.
I was sitting here saying to myself, I'm like, he better make some kind of joke about me being a hunk, or I'm going to feel like this entire enterprise was for nothing.
The three hunkiest guys around are talking about the movie Hunk. It makes perfect sense to me.
Mm-hmm. The great thing about the word hunk is that you don't have to specify hunk of what. So it could be anything.
And speaking to it being a classic, it does have a stub page on the Turner Classic Movies website.
So that counts.
That. I was thinking to myself, I was like, this is one of those movies that just disappeared after it came out. But then I stopped myself and I was like, no, this wasn't a movie that disappeared. This is a movie that registered on no one's radar when it came out, except
okay. I'm confused by that because I feel like this should have a bigger audience than it does. This should be a cult classic right now.
Except that I watched it. Like, okay, so I mean, the reason you guys, I don't remember how this came up, but I have a weird history with this movie.
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason that I think it came up because Skinner, we wanted to get you on to do one of these rehash episodes with us, but we're like, what movie should we do? And somehow we were like talking about Hunk because we felt like that was a movie that needed more of an audience than it has, and then somehow it came up either before we had slotted you in or we asked you if you wanted to do it, and then you mentioned that you had like a history with it, and I was like, well, we have to talk about that. This is perfect.
Yeah. And then thinking back on it, I was like, well, that's not much of a history, but I do have a history with the movie Hunk.
I mean, that's more than like literally anyone on the planet has, because it is basically invisible for a movie that zooms in on somebody's unit getting enlarged.
but a movie that sells itself as a sexy comedy that then goes out of its way to avoid any sex or nudity except for one sex scene that is just blatantly done for slapstick purposes. Like,
yes,
it doesn't even like ogle the human, like it ogles the hunk's body, but like even the women in bikinis are just kind of there and you see him look at them, but it's not like Baywatch. It's not like crawling over people's bodies. It's just this very chaste, sexy comedy about a man.
It's kind of what I like about it. I feel like it's weirdly innocent, and oddly it's rated PG, which seems
but when you talk about it disappearing, that's where I'm like, it's that question of like, who is this movie aimed at? Like, who is it for? It's not for teens who want like a boobs and beers comedy, because it's not that. It's not for
the gaze of the movie is completely on the hunk.
Yeah, but it's also like it's a very like I just keep coming back to the word chaste. Like, this could be like a play that high schools do, and you wouldn't have to cut anything out. It's just, there it is. It's this weird, it's more of a Faustian tale than a sexy comedy.
It's so weird in that, like, I guess it's a parody, like it's making fun of yuppies and hunks and rich people and good looking people, but it also isn't. Like, it doesn't do any of its small details well, which gives it this really kind of weird like it's never not weird for more than like 3 minutes at a time. Like, from the moment you like, they can't do his job right. They can't explain what the fuck he does right to then never explaining what he like, that Hunk and Brinkman are different, but they're not. Right. And then like the whole devil article, and they have like, you know, the Temptress be 3 different people. And right. It's just really, it's like, make a choice, but they just can't. And like the whole, like there's a whole point, like his boss, the joke is his name is Constantine Constantopoulos.
Right.
And like, that's it. That's the joke for a 2-minute section.
What? Okay. Before we go too far, what exactly is his job?
He's a software idea thinker. He writes stories about good software ideas.
But what the software aspect doesn't make any sense because he's just printing it off on that green and white striped paper.
The software aspect made no sense to anyone in the 80s. People had no idea what software developers were. They had no idea what computers actually did. The concept was so amazingly foreign. All they knew about software was what you bought at Babbage's, was Lotus 123, Leisure Suit Larry, and Space Quest, and that was it. And so when it came time to write, it was the equivalent of like writing an advertising executive, like in the 90s. Like, what do? I don't know. They go to meetings and then they're bad dads. Like, that's all this is it's supposed to be like, this is a job that only a nerd would have that you can probably make some money off of. And I think that's as far as they went. It doesn't help that the guy who wrote and directed this movie, Lawrence Bassoff, only wrote and directed 2 movies. And then he has absolutely, I don't know anything about this guy. He has no presence. All I could find is that he collects movie posters. Like, that is it. He has all these books about movie posters. And that's, so I'm like,
has a good movie poster for, it looks like it's a good 1980s rental store movie poster. It is a takeoff of Oh God, You Devil, which is what you want. I mean, it doesn't have. We're not peering at the hunk between 2 sexy legs. That is a downside.
Which poster are you talking about? Because there's 2 main posters for Hunk. I'm looking
at the Crown International Classic version, where it has the devil poking Brinkman in the butt on one side of a mirror and the hunk coming out to O'Brien on the other side. There is no mirror in this movie.
No, but that is not the poster that attracted 11-year-old Phil Gonzales and began this minor obsession with the movie Hunk in 1987. The poster that I won't say fell in love with, because that sounds weird. The poster that I was like enamored of for some reason was just this poster that had the license plate that said Hunk on it. California Hunk? That said California Hunk. And so in my mind, there was this movie called California Hunk that all I knew was so you had to go to the video store to get movies, videotapes. And while you were there, you would get their little monthly newsletter that would tell you everything that was coming out, and sometimes tell you little like summaries of the films. And so Hunk was in there, and it had a little summary. A nerd sells his soul to the devil to become a hunk. And all I needed was that awesome poster and this brief description to know that this was going to be the best movie I saw that year. To know that this was going to be an amazing film. I was a nerdy kid. I thought any movie about nerd empowerment was bound to be like the next best thing in my life. And so until this movie came out on video, that's all I talked about. I would go in, I would see if Hunk had come in. Has Hunk come in? Or as I kept thinking of it, California Hunk? Is California Hunk in?
That is a better name, by the way, than just Hunk.
And I would ask the proprietor, I'd be like, is California Hunk in? Is California Hunk in? This is a premiere video on Stubner Airline. I'd be, is California Hunk in? They'd be like, no, kid, no. And I can imagine this poor guy just being like, there's this 11-year-old kid who keeps coming in asking for this Hunk movie. Like, this kid just really obsessed with like beefcake films, I guess. And it came in and I watched it, and I did that thing when you're a kid, you rented a movie and you had it for like 2 or 3 days. And so you watch it about 12 times. And I had no idea what I was supposed to make of this film. It was just like, this movie, is it supposed to be like, am I supposed to be like titillated by it? Am I supposed to be laughing out loud at it? Is it supposed to be scary at the end because it gets all like fire and hell? I didn't know. And so I kept thinking about it. And then, like we said in the beginning of the episode, it just completely disappeared until the invention of the internet.
What I think is just it. What strikes me looking back at it, and kind of at the time as well, is it's not a Billy Batson thing. Like the idea of like this guy who doesn't have it all, who wants to have it all.
Yeah.
Like it is such an easy idea to work with. I mean, to tie to today, if the world hasn't talked about it enough at this very moment of time, this podcast recording, Wonder Woman 84 is basically Hunk. But like,
can they use that as a pull quote?
I mean, it might, if that will help people stop talking about how it's either really great or the worst movie ever, which Phil and I have discussed at length. Things can just be fine or bad. It's fine. You can move on with your lives. Right. You don't have to like go so far with either. Also, if the worst movie you've seen in your lifetime is Wonder Woman 84, congratulations. You've curated your life incredibly well. I'm very jealous of you.
A charmed life.
Like, but in that movie, like, they have someone who grants wishes, but then can take something from you. It's very immediate, and you get in this one, he like, I never got a sense, because the idea is he's supposed to feel like he doesn't, like there's a downside to being Hunk Golden. Great name.
Best name.
But
yes.
like all it comes down to is like, oh shit, I'm going to become a demon.
Mm-hmm.
Like since we don't know Brinkman or his family or his growing up or his old friends or old anything, like losing him means nothing.
Right. Yeah, we have.
I think that we talked about this in the first episode that we did on this way back in the first year of the show, but like I think you end up liking Hunk more than you like Bradley just because you spend more time with Hunk in the movie.
Right. And it doesn't help that John Allen Nelson is really charming in this movie.
Yes.
He's bright, he's friendly, he's got actually good I've seen John Allen Nelson in a few things, specifically Baywatch, where he played Court, and he is charmless in Baywatch. Like he's handsome, but he's not he's unlikable. And in this he's like, oh, I would be friends with this guy. He's still smart. He's outgoing. He's nice. But I mean, but even like Bradley Brinkman isn't an unlikable character. Like all that happens is he just becomes better looking and apparently becomes a superhero as well, who can like stop oncoming cars.
They should have pushed that further. I wanted to see what else he could do.
Well, that's like what the Shazam thing came into me.
Yeah.
Is like he asked to be like super cool and popular, but also like his teeth brush themselves. His bones are unbreakable. Like they go that little extra thing that he never kind of asked for. I'm like, why did the movie make him a superhero? Like he could just be slightly stronger because he is physically larger than everybody else. He doesn't have to be like an invincible golden god.
Right.
It's so weird. It's also so weird that like when he checks himself out for the first time and like he's coming to grips with that he has changed, and to really stress that he is a different person rather than someone who has been changed. He refers to his dick as being a different dick.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's no longer Oscar, his best friend since 7th grade.
I don't understand that.
I don't understand it at all. But like we've all had that fear or problem where like, you throw a party and no one shows up, but like unfortunately for like me, like watching this, like, oh no, assholes didn't show up at his party.
Well, I think that's one of the big problems, and Josh mentioned this, is we don't get to know Bradley Brinkman very well. And I mean, he's just sort of a schlub, but he's also like not, he's not the guy from, he's not Melvin from the Toxic Avenger. He's not a completely asocial like misfit. He's just kind of a geeky guy, but he speaks well. He's outgoing. He tries to make friends. And
He's in shape.
Yeah, he's in good enough shape. We don't get to know him well enough. And then every person he's surrounded by in this new community, so he moves to a new community, is completely unlikable, with the exception of Chachka, his neighbor,
who is God or not. Like at the end, I think I also had this question in the first time we watched it, and I still have this question. Is she some sort of divine being because of the way that she regards him and Sunny, or the princess, whatever her name is, at the end of the movie, with this like knowing nod, like, yeah, everything went according to plan?
I have no idea. I find her character befuddling. I'm not sure what they were going for with her. Like, they keep trying to pitch. Is she supposed to? I couldn't tell how old she was supposed to be. How like she was just the only friendly person around, which of course meant that they have to dress her like some kind of dumpy weirdo.
Yeah, and make her a klepto.
Right. She's played by Cynthia Zaghetti, who, like, if you don't know who that is, she was one of the teachers at the Groundlings, and like almost everyone who came through the Groundlings in like the late 70s, early 80s, into the 90s like studied under her. And so when you look her up, it's mostly just all these famous people talking about how awesome she is and was, because she died a little while back. But Lisa Kudrow basically credited her with creating her career. So,
holy shit,
yeah, Cynthia Zaghetti, she's like this this legend in the improv world, and so it's weird that like she's in this and just kind of like fumbling around in every scene. She's getting
they don't give her like a direction besides an outfit.
Yes,
but yeah, but you could say that she took all those Brinkmans and made all these Hunk Goldens. The Groundlings.
This is such a weird movie. The one thing that really stuck with me when I was a kid is the moment where he signs the deal with the devil, and she's brought a hypodermic pen with her.
Yes.
And for some reason, that concept, a hypodermic pen that will draw your blood from your finger, like, I thought that was the coolest idea. Like,
it is cool. There's a lot of cool, fun little things in here. Like, it shows. I think you said this at the beginning, but like, or somebody did. One of you said it on maybe our chat, that it's doing something different from the typical movie of this type, which I think is what brings it up in my esteem a little bit. Like, it's why I'm so soft on it, because it's trying something. It's not just the typical like, oh, I look awesome and now I'm going to be kind of a jerk and everything. Like, he has that little bit where that happens, where he's like starts to kind of turn a little bit, because of all the fame and things that he's getting, and it goes to his head. But it doesn't last that long, because he realizes it's not right. He realizes it's not who he is, and so he changes. But like, it's got something more on its mind than just guy signs a deal with the devil and changes, and he has to figure out how to change back. Like, there's I mean, the whole stuff with the devil, which we'll talk about, is like very like wild to me.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like those movies that came out in the late 70s, early 80s, that the low budget, high concept comedies. For some reason, Eating Raoul always comes to mind. Like these movies with a weird idea, and then you watch them and you realize that the plot wasn't the point, that the filmmaker and the writer were really trying to explore like just how weird comedy could get, and like how willing the audience would go along with you in your satire and your exploration of kind of like the sort of form of film itself. And I feel like not to give Lawrence Bassoff too much credit, but because this movie forgoes the sex and nudity and swearing and drug use and even like drinking of most like 80s comedies, it has to have another agenda, which is this weird satire. This like, I'm trying to look at the superficiality of yuppie life. I'm trying to look at like the concept of like who we are inside, what matters, looks versus behavior. Like I feel like, and like he parodies like lifestyles of the rich and famous.
Yeah.
Like I'm like,
which everyone did at the time,
which everyone did at the time, and so like, and yeah, so I do agree with Josh there, which is that this movie, I do have to give this movie credit for trying to be something beyond a run-of-the-mill 80s comedy, even if it doesn't necessarily succeed in what it's trying to do.
I mean, I think Lawrence Bassoff, that's why he never made another movie. He did this. He was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm going out on top.
I finished
He took down Los Angeles right to the heart, and he walked away. To me, like, it's amazing to me in that it doesn't do anything well. Like, it's not. It's a comedy, and it's satirizing yuppies, which we love to do. We both loved them and hated them at the time, but like, it's never funny. It doesn't have
Right.
huge, actually good set pieces using the talent it has. Like I can't remember anything like it was like laugh out loud funny, and it's not really a romp in that kind of like slapstick sort of way or any way. But also like, I look at the box office, $1,749,956, which is very specific.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking like, how did this movie get made? Like, was there no one giving notes? Like, the movie you say that it's not is what it should have been if you're making a movie to make money at this point in 1987. You would
have the boobs and the drinking and like, you know,
just
make it very raunchy.
Back at the party, like just something like it would be more explicit. He would be like, the wish fulfillment would be more in the face. Like the kids watching it, because kids would watch this rather than adults, would like have that moment of like, oh, I could have my wish turn into Hunk Golden, and I would have sex, and then blah blah blah. The devil would want me to start World War III, and that's a problem. Maybe, but like, and that's such a weird stretch. But like, was there no one there to say like, hey, Crown International Pictures and RCA would love you to do anything else? Or were they sitting here going like, no, keep it PG-13 because we want kids to rent this?
Yeah, it was produced by Marilyn Jacobs Tenser, who, if you look at her list of films leading up to Hunk, most of the posters have women with no tops on.
Are there any of the main character from Between Two Legs and Stockings?
No, there's Pom Pom Girls, which is just women in a getting undressed in a locker room. There's Malibu Beach, which is a woman from behind with no top on, and a dog holding her bikini top.
Okay, I think that we have a podcast for that movie.
There's Beach Girls, which is a bunch of women on a beach and one of whose shirt is flying open. So it's like, she knew what she was doing. Oh, and she did My Tutor as well. Oh my God, she did My Tutor.
She also did previous episode My Mom's a Werewolf.
After this, yeah.
Which is also kind of tame generally.
So
yeah, it's a pretty tame one.
But like, none of the ones leading up to this were what I would call tame. And then, so I'm like, maybe she was like, okay, I've done all these boob comedies. I found a guy who'll do what is sort of a stealth smart comedy. Like, we'll sell it as a boob comedy, but it's actually going to be about something else. It's going to be about superficiality. It's going to be about the yuppie lifestyle. It's going to be about the beach lifestyle. And this is going to be this is going to be my serious film. This is the one that's going to break me into another world of filmmaking.
My God, I love that the Wikipedia page has it starring Brad Pitt for the 5 seconds he's blurrily
in the background of one scene.
Now, I watched this from a YouTube. This was on YouTube. That's how I saw it. The YouTube link. And the people who did the YouTube link pointed out Brad Pitt. Like,
I would not have, the first time through, nothing. Did not see it.
And then you see him and it's like, oh, that's Brad Pitt. That's just Brad Pitt sitting in the background.
Yeah, he commands the screen.
I mean, if he was less blurry, but like no more or less than pretty much. I mean, like I said, John Allen Nelson, very good in this movie. Everyone else has nothing to work with.
I mean, James Coco is great as the devil.
Dr. D. We don't know that he's the devil. He's a doctor. Maybe not a doctor of medicine, but
Doctor of demonology, I guess.
Robert Morse as the Robin Leach, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous-esque character. Robert Morse is slumming it in this movie. I'm like, you're a Tony Award winner. You're Robert Morse. Like,
is that character offensive in some way? That's an offensive stereotype that he's playing, right?
Robin Leach?
No, Garrison Gaylord.
I guess. I mean, who knows? I feel like Robert Morse walked on set. They handed him his lines, and he was like fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'll do. What do you want me to do? Okay.
I even like that. Like, I like his little spat with the director of the show. Like, can't be bothered to remember where he is. He doesn't really care. He has a problem with the wardrobe person who always overstarches his shirt, so that's why he leaves all of his wardrobe back at his trailer. Like,
a lot of world building.
Yes, I love all of that. Like, it doesn't need to be there, but I love it.
He hadn't done a movie in 17 years when he made this. He had last done The Boatniks in 1970. And then he's like, what's going to bring me out of film retirement? I hear about this movie called Hunk. Sure, I guess I'll play this character. He had been doing like Dukes of Hazzard episodes.
Hunk is what got him into Mad Men.
I guess. I'm like, Robert Moore. It's such a weird like term, but I guess James Coco's in it as well. So what are you going to do? Who was this director, and what strings did he have to pull? Lawrence Bassoff is not he collects movie posters. That's it. Yeah. Like, that's what he's known for now. Who was this guy?
It's just so weird that he got to write and direct 2 movies, and that's it ever. But like, why was he ever given that opportunity?
I mean,
he has
the
to
right
know
people,
somebody,
or he has money. Like, how
is he a Breen?
I mean, who knows? It's wild. Like, his first movie sounds interesting too. Like, it sounds like it would be something that might be worth a look. It's called Weekend Pass. It's about some sailors who completed basic training. They get on their first weekend pass and they basically hit up a bunch of bars. It's rated R, so it probably does embrace that raunchy comedy aspect of the 80s that you're expecting. But I'm wondering why he went from that, which does seem sort of basic, like guys on the town probably getting into various shenanigans and whatnot.
Sexy shenanigans
with a character named Chop Susie.
Yes, I bet that's not offensive at all in any modern context.
Oh God! So like, it's weird that he went from that, and that was in '84, to Hunk in '87, and there is like a bit of a change there, seemingly, because Hunk is so seemingly innocent, comparably, and but produced also by that. By the woman that you mentioned, same producer. Mm-hmm. So it's like maybe he had a relationship with her, and
maybe he signed a deal with the devil.
Yeah,
maybe you get to make 2 movies, and then you have to collect movie posters for the rest of your life.
I have to really give him, as far as like the Betty Veronica 1987ness of this, to create the dichotomy of there's a dark haired girl and a blonde girl.
Yeah.
But it turns out they're the same girl for no reason.
They're also a princess.
It was also a princess. Like that, the turning on the head of like, he can have both because they're literally both the same person.
Right. I also respect a movie that has a framing device that stops being a framing device halfway through. Like, because it starts with him at the psychiatrist and she's listening to the story of this movie. But then halfway through, he starts dating that psychiatrist, and then she ends up being the devil's minion who got him into this mess in the first place. Like, I respect a movie that where you think it's going to be framed a certain way, and then they just were like, now we're done with the framing device. I don't know why we did this in the first place.
We watched way too many movies for this podcast where they set up a framing device and then just drop it halfway through.
Well, this one worked, I think, just because of how they make it like kind of flow together.
Yeah.
And it is weird how it does sort of disappear though, because like once he's there like he explains all the stuff that happens, and he's like, okay, so you'll take my case, and she's like, yeah, sure. And then you just realize that he's been going to her regularly to talk about what's going on. But I liked that they didn't. I like that they didn't make it a weird thing where he had to choose, because that's sort of what you expect from these movies of like, oh, he's torn because he's still drawn to the evil woman, but he's also drawn to this good woman, and like, oh, which one is it going to be? Which one's he going to pick? And it's like, well, he doesn't have to, because they are the same person.
They are the same person.
And the decision is made for him, essentially, which is kind of a cop out, but I still kind of like it. I liked the twist of it turning out that Sunny is not, just this random good person. Like, she's still trying to lead him on as the devil's minion and get him to like stay with the thing, because for whatever reason, the devil gives him a choice to like give up the hunkiness after Labor Day. Like, he lets him take a very long test drive of this new body before he has to make his final choice.
Yeah.
It's also funny because, like, in a movie like this, where someone who usually we would know better than we know Brinkman, but we would have him know somebody and then they fall for his alter ego instead of himself. Instead, both girls who fall with him for him, who are the same girl, I have to point this out, is the same girl, are both the person who turned him into the hunk in the first place. So there is no usual set piece in this movie where he's sad because the girl who fell in love with him doesn't know who he really is, because both girls who fell in love with him are the same girl who turned him into the hunk in the first place. There is no Gem in the hologram, Jessica Gem thing. He is the person who likes him, knows exactly who he is the whole movie.
It is weird. It also doesn't. Her being the psychiatrist and the devil's minion, O'Brien, is that her name?
Yes,
yeah, I don't know why her name is O'Brien.
Because the Irish. But in their intense connection to the devil. The fact that it's her, it doesn't. The way the psychiatrist Sunny acts in the beginning doesn't quite jibe with her actually being O'Brien. Like, from a film perspective, there's no indication that this woman, like even on rewatch, that this woman is actually a woman who already knows this story. She's behaving like a real psychiatrist.
She's taking she's put a lot of hours into it, but what we do learn later is that time is fluid for demons and the devil.
Okay, so I want to talk about this. I think this is my favorite part of the whole thing. Like, the ideas that the thought that went into deciding how the devil works.
Yeah.
I thought was really interesting, and like it's one of those weird things where it's like, oh man, I wonder if anyone else has ever thought of that. It's like a idea of like, okay, the devil is real, but he has to keep traveling through time and causing bad things to happen so that evil doesn't like go away. Like, so he has to keep making disasters occur even in the past. Like, it's weird because it implies that if he doesn't go back and make them happen, then they suddenly will not happen and it will screw with time somehow.
I don't understand it, but it is kind of interesting.
It would make more sense if time wasn't fluid, he wasn't in all time frames at all time, yet he's having a recruitment problem in the current time because he is low on demons at the moment. But that would mean he's always low on demons, and he would always know if this succeeded or not.
I think they just wanted to dress James Coco up as a Nazi.
And I think that is true, and I think it is a powerful decision because this is a satire, so they're satirizing Nazis. They're not. Yes. That is. If you are in a satire and a character dresses as a Nazi, you are satirizing Nazis. Right. At that point, that is your get out of jail free card.
Super tastefully done.
I will say that his deals, he's not a very good deal maker, because not only does he allow Bradley to test drive the hunk persona,
the
Hunkmobile for 3 months basically, but we also find out at the end when O'Brien says she wants to give up and give up her deal, that she was supposed to only give him one soul every 100 years.
Yeah.
Like, so she just gets to like fuck off for as much as she wants, as long as she gets one soul a century.
She couldn't find a single other soul from 1975
Yes.
through 1997.
The fact that the devil is like, I'm going to cut you a deal, and you can try it out for 30 days or for however long you like. But then I will come and you will tell me if you want to keep the deal. And then the person's like, I don't want to keep this deal. And the devil's like, okay. And that's
It's like-
it. I'm like, oh wait, you're the devil, and you're just like, no, I told you, like, you get to test drive the deal, and you didn't want it, so I'm not gonna like push you on this. I was like, that's really weird that like that's not a conflict. That the devil doesn't try to trick him into it or renege on his like agreement. The devil's just like, all right, great.
At the end, too, he's like, I'll give you 6 more months if you want to just like
Right.
keep it going just a little bit longer,
He just
because then I
wants
know
this
you'll
guy
want
to be
it.
a hunk. He just wants the guy being a hunk.
He just wants the guy to have a good customer experience so that he'll continue to use the service.
The devil
has-
is just he's just trying to create more beautiful people.
The devil has a better return policy than Best Buy.
It's true. But she has been test driving her body for like hundreds of years.
Yes. Because at some point she's been doing, because he says that she came from like the 1400s or something. And so like she's been doing this for a while, and she's had no problem delivering souls up to a point, like up to within 100 years. And then now suddenly she's like, oh, well, it's too much. And she started falling in love with various guys. So who knows how many times she's done this kind of same thing.
Does she keep making the same guy, though?
Now that would be interesting if we got like Hunk and he started having memories of being previous people.
I was gonna say, I thought you were gonna say he goes to the library and like he's looking through like old woodcuts and he just sees hunks throughout history,
That
and
would
it's
be
always the same
awesome.
hunk.
That would be fantastic. Because like she doesn't make a hunkier version of Brinkman. She makes a very specific guy.
Yeah,
She even changes his underwear.
she does. Yeah, you see his ding dong grow under his boxer shorts, and then he wakes up and he's wearing a Speedo, and I'm like, that's like she changed his underpants.
Yeah, and she turned his room into a 10-year-old's room.
Right? Yeah, those sheets are amazing.
He's got like a race car bed, basically.
He does. That's
Here's
what a
my
hunk would have.
my argument that Chachka is not a creature of the heavens is that with the devil being so lenient and so not good at what he's trying to do as his main recruitment policy, like there would be no evil on earth if God had any competency whatsoever to battle this whole
Right.
deal. So there could only be the devil versus a vacuum, really.
I like that idea that there is no God there, but there is a devil. He just gives out deals. And if you take it, then maybe in like 50 years or something, you'll have to help him start World War III.
War III.
That's
Which
why there's so
seems
much
to-
time between wars, because that warranty.
World War III, which seems to involve just killing people on a beach.
That's where it starts. Sea spray is the ground zero for World War III.
I guess. But yeah, so that's the ultimate goal of the devil, is he's going to need Hunk to help start World War III.
But also travel through time,
Right.
and keep evil going.
Yeah. What kind of devil needs like a rando assistant?
Some guy who's not even a really good programmer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Needs someone else to do his work for him.
I guess. Yeah, and then like when he finds out at the end that she was a princess, that inspires him to create a new program, because the whole reason he's on the beach is to think of a new program after his like major leagues. Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, this nerdlinger is also like pretty well off because he's a really good computer programmer who's good at his job and just created like this huge best-selling program.
Okay, when they say program, to me it sounds like it's a book. Like it's like a self-help book for
Is
yuppies.
That's
what it sounds like. It teaches them how to basically live the yuppie lifestyle, but on a budget. Because he talks about something with like microwaving. Someone says something to him about how amazed they are meeting him because he wrote that book, and they're thankful for him to they're thankful for him because I wrote it in my notes somewhere, but it's like something about how that book helped them learn how to like stock their wine cellar for cheap, and also like how to cook things very quickly. Like it's so bizarre. Like
I don't know if you've ever programmed in BASIC, but like it's literally if wine equals too expensive, then go to Trader Joe's and get $4 jug and reprint the labels.
You bring this up, and I'm like, man, I just assume he was a computer programmer because he's working in an office with a giant computer in front of a computer terminal with all these keyboards and stuff. But maybe he is just what does he work for, like a self-help organization, and like they just have a supercomputer for no?
That's what it seems
well,
like.
He said like he was making a program for conversational Icelandic.
Yeah, like I don't know what that means. Like
he says I'd sell my soul for a money-making program, and then he creates something that's called a program, but it is a program in the sense of like a low-carb diet program but he does it into a computer and it prints on green bars. So I like I said, I think all it is they don't know what software. Even people who ran computer companies, if you're like me and you're up late at night and you look back at 1980s stuff for no goddamn reason other than you're just an old man, you'll read about like failed microcomputer lines, and that's basically all of them because they're all gone, right?
Yeah.
And it's because the people making it and the marketers didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Like the only ones that ever lasted was like the Commodore 64 and like a few other ones because they put video games on it, but none of them wanted to be that. They all wanted to make lifestyle computers and work computers, and they didn't know how to do that except through marketing, and they chinced on everything, and they always fucked it up because they just like, oh, we can't have it be for kids. Why not? And then like that's it. Like that was their whole thoughts. Yeah, and then they're all gone to history.
At the end, when he's talking about having come up with the Princess Program, he says, the Princess Program, how to live royally on a week's pay. So it sounds like it's like a self-help book of like, here's how you can make your money stretch. This is like an article that would appear in some random magazine.
Right. What does it have to do with him meeting a princess?
I don't know.
Well, I can think of it's like it ends with a princess like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
This is the same era, though, that gave us Weird Science, a movie where two nerds type into a computer and a woman comes out of it. Like, that's what we thought computers were. That's like, how do you write? What is a program? I don't know. I know programmers write them. I guess maybe it's like you write a list of how-to tips and then they put it in a computer. Sure. I think that's like literally the beginning and end of this. They just needed him to be a nerd.
Okay, but he's a nerd, yet when we meet our yuppie people on the beach, they're sitting around playing Trivial Pursuit.
That's the worst.
Which is the craziest thing I think I've ever seen. Like, that is not a beach activity.
I was trying to see if that was satire, but I couldn't wrap my brain around what it would be satirizing.
Well, it was definitely satirizing Trivial Pursuit at the time, which was, of course, like its own punchline. Like all you had to do was say Trivial Pursuit, and people were like, "That's a thing."
It's like sushi was a punchline. You could say
yes.
And this movie does do that in his list of failed computer programs. They mention sushi, and his program is ridiculous because it mentions sushi.
It mentions sushi.
But like,
yep.
I think people who aren't our age may not understand that how incredibly popular Trivial Pursuit is. I'm shocked there wasn't a cartoon about it.
Right. But yeah, so he encounters these yuppies, and I think that's probably part of the whole like yuppie satire is these people aren't cool, they're yuppies. They're good looking, but in a gross way, and they're all dumb and superficial. Like these aren't babes and hunks. These are young urban professionals who spend their time on the beach playing Trivial Pursuit. You don't see these people in like skimpy bathing suits like in the beginning. They are a breed apart, and so they're trying to satirize something. They're trying to say like this is the world he wants to be a part of, I guess, but it is weird. They're all uniformly unlikable characters.
Yeah, did you guys catch that Skeet Mecklenburger was the honorary mayor of Sea Spray?
What?
What?
Yeah, the guy that he meets, Skeet Mecklenburger, who he plays volleyball with and then punches out. At the end, when they're giving Hunk the key to the city, they announce that Skeet is there to bestow the key on him, as he is the honorary mayor of Sea Spray.
Why would you have an honorary mayor? What would be the point of an wouldn't you have your real mayor?
I have no idea.
Or is it just a subdivision of a city so that it doesn't have any particular parliament?
Yeah, I guess he's like the mayor of Hollywood or whatever, because like it's an honorary position that holds no power. But I think that's what's happening with
the mayor of Hollywood is some guy just on the street just raving and half nude, right?
I am happy that Skeet Mecklenburger himself, Doug Shanklin, got to wear the same mustache when he was in Star Trek 3. So if you see him in Star Trek 3 Search for Spock as Starfleet prison guard, he's still got the mustache. So good for him.
Those people are all terrible. I think it's funny. I mean, it's funny when they have the big volleyball match and he destroys him. You know, right. I love all the extreme angles on his serve, and when Skeet runs at Hunk and he just like does a punch and knocks him out. Like, I just love how over the top that's filmed. Yeah. I don't know. I think that this movie has like weirdly like comforting in a weird way. Like, I don't understand how to explain that, but just something about rewatching it yesterday, I was like, oh, it just feels right. I don't know why.
Weirdly comforting.
It's weirdly harmless from a movie that I expected great harm from. Yes. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, for sure.
And it is really more comfortable showing off the Hunk than it is anybody else, which is different for that time. Like,
yeah, it's refreshing. That opening montage is amazing because it's very much just focused specifically on this guy and how super diced he is.
Yeah.
And him driving around town, and like his pheromones apparently are just affecting everyone. There's women dropping things in the street and stopping in the middle of the road to stare at him. And like, it's very different from what you would get in 1987.
Yeah. It also, it is so harmless. Like, I guess that is like a good, like, everything about this just it almost feels like it's been edited for television.
Yes,
like,
but it's not.
But it's not. Like, no one says anything offensive, like, for an 80s comedy. Like, no one, like,
does anyone call anyone the F word?
No, they don't.
No, there's only the mildest gay panic in one scene. It's during a montage, and there's all these people sending him drinks at the bar.
And one's a guy.
And one is a guy, and he just kind of like looks away and kind of does the like woo whistling thing, like he's, you know, not paying attention or doesn't want to be noticed. And that's really it.
Yeah.
Like, which is shocking for this movie.
Which is it's such a weird movie.
Yeah, it's weird because like he does have sex with lots of women, including two sisters at one point, which is like, Jesus Christ.
That's that 80s thing, really. That's that Dan from Night Court thing where like the biggest fantasy you can like possibly name is having sex with two sisters who are stewardesses. Like, for some reason, that's like a recurring
imagine how
theme.
Weird that would be for the sisters.
They showed up at his house.
I know, but like that just seems like a really odd family activity.
Right,
like,
right.
You're having your cocoa at Christmas late, and you're like, remember earlier this year when we both boned down on the same person at the same time?
That guy named Hunk.
Remember his name was Hunk? It seemed a little on the nose, and then I was on his nose.
We do get a great scene where Hunk eventually, his name is Hunk Golden. I have to keep reminding myself that Hunk eventually, it's not really like the fame starts going to his head. It's mostly just like the pressure starts getting to him and he freaks out at his fans. People are constantly hounding him for autographs and stuff. And he turns a water hose on them, not like a fire hose, just a water hose. And that does it. That like breaks the Hunk spell. But we do get this great shot. It's probably the greatest. Probably my favorite shot in all of cinema, which is where the guy throws down his Hunk action figure.
Yes.
And we get the shot of this terrible little Hunk action figure that someone in production had to make for the movie.
It looks like a He-Man figure that's been repainted and it has a little necktie.
It's got abs for days and yeah, it's I laughed out loud when I saw it. I was like, that was great. The whole
That's
movie
the same guy.
Great.
That's the same guy who's holding a Hunk for President sign before he gets sprayed with the water hose.
Yes. Oh man, it's a real shame they didn't have the word "stan" back then, because
Hunk Stan
right there. Like, so this guy is famous, and no one knows where he came from, and then he disappears forever.
Yes, he is very famous. He is at the point of he has Hunk Burger franchises.
Yeah.
He's on the cover of Them, Newsweek with a WEAK, and Tame magazine.
Taint magazine?
Tame magazine.
Tame.
But
this movie
but also
could be
on
in
Taint
Tame magazine.
He's endorsing all kinds of products, including hemorrhoid medicine. And is talking to someone about potentially ending up on the American flag.
Like when you're setting up, giving this company who's going to use you for an endorsement, so you have to have a contract with them. Like when you're giving them your W-9 and your Social Security, does he have all that as Hunk?
Yes, he does, because he has a driver's license.
That's right.
She creates all that stuff for him.
And then she becomes a psychiatrist for his emotions. O'Brien does a lot for this guy, and I don't think he appreciates it. He still uses her to make more money at the end.
All he has to do is start World War III as well. Like,
which would happen anyways.
I will point out that I just discovered this. The Spanish version of this movie, the version released on Espanol, is referred to as Hunk the Yuppie. That's the title. Hunk the Yuppie. So maybe that gives us a little more insight into what they were going for here.
Do you think, would the movie be better or worse if either the movie wasn't named Hunk or he wasn't named Hunk?
I wish he wasn't named Hunk.
It makes it a little too, for a movie that is slapstick and it is over the top and it is ridiculous, since it's not actually funny, the fact that his name is literally, like if he was something and people called him the Hunk, like that was his famous name, like, oh, you know, that hunk, Jeremy Golden or something, or his name started with like maybe
even
his name was like Hank.
Brock. Yeah, Hank.
Hank would be good, because then people could call him Hunk. Yes.
Yeah.
But like his name is Hunk. He has a license plate that says Hunk. It's a little bit too much of a hammer on the head.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Please.
And this is something I do not understand, and maybe you guys can fill me in on where this falls culturally. Is frozen women dressed as mermaids at a party a thing? Is that a real job where women would dress as mermaids and then not move at a party?
I have seen pictures from the 90s and some maybe the 80s of like parties by and for sports stars.
Okay.
I know what photo you're talking about.
Specifically specifically right now I'm thinking of that Vander Holyfield party after he won a title, where that was part of the party.
Okay.
I think there is a level of fame you get where you do want human statues. Like say we along that same level of having of wanting fame and money, but not knowing what to do with it and what status symbols actually mean that say certain presidents have. So just like gold fucking everything.
Yeah.
This is like, oh, if I can pay someone to just be there and do fucking nothing for hours, I will.
Okay, this just got me like, I just found 5 separate websites that will hire out living statues
Oh my god.
for parks and like, but not like, these aren't like skeezy parties. These are like in museums.
I'm
These
just
are
so excited that this is going to be on your search history and thus as recommended ads for you on social media for a little while.
living statues. Living statues are a great addition to any party. From
They
classic,
are.
They?
from classic Grecian living statues to living Oscar statues. Any character can become a living statue. Keep an eye. Wait. Keep an eye on their subtle movements that will stun your guests.
Okay,
One of these is clearly just a person hiding behind a plant.
That'd be amazing for what party would you want someone is hiding behind a plant and then everyone in the room kind of pretends there isn't somebody hiding behind a plant for the entire 2 to 3 hours? Like graduation party, that really wouldn't work unless we want to do some kind of symbolism of you're going to college to still hide from the reality of the workforce, you know?
I mean, I feel like if you're going to hire a living statue, like you have to have some fake statues around too. Otherwise, it just feels like here's this single statue that we have standing in the middle of this space, and
Here's
it's
this
moving. So clearly, it's a person.
Here's this person at the party that I won't talk to, which is
Right.
comforting.
It just seems uncomfortable. So what happens with the living statue of the mermaid is she's just sort of there at the refreshment table, and Mustachio Man starts hitting on her, and of course she doesn't respond because that's part of her job description is to be a statue. But then Hunk shows up and she like comes on to him in secret and then hits Mustachio Man with her tail. And I feel like I'm supposed to already understand the etiquette of the living statue in order to really get like the subtle social interactions that are like when the living statue breaks protocol, that mean like that socially that is a sign of like sexual interest or like I don't know, like I
But he
hurt
also
myself.
had to
and
have hired her, so that makes it even more uncomfortable. Like pre-internet, he had to go in the phone book to find out where to get one of these. And I just called her one of these, and I feel bad about that.
One of these. That is the worst thing. They are people. They are still people.
Are they really? Though we're paying them to not be people. Much like the devil is paying him to be a demon, giving him a chance to become a demon. And he's exchanging money for them to throw away their humanity.
For whatever reason, I thought that she was going to be more of a character by how much time they were spending on her.
Yeah,
like,
you do see a lot of the Living Mermaid.
For some reason, I was like, oh, is this? Because I remembered there being
That's also O'Brien somehow.
Yes. I remember there being a love interest, but I didn't totally remember that it was just Sunny who was... I remembered that Sunny was O'Brien, but for whatever reason in my brain, I thought there was another person. And I thought, oh, they're spending a lot of time on her, so they must be setting up this person. And, you know, she has to talk about how she's paid to go in a place and never speak and, like, has to put up with all kinds of stuff. And, like, he sees something about that in himself or something. And, like, but that never never happened. So, and Phil just shared with us the photo of the person hiding behind the tree.
It's called
What's
the
great is
living plant.
When it popped up, it for a second put your head behind the tree for me. And I thought you had photoshopped yourself behind a plant. And I'm like, I've been at social things with Phil. He's not behind the plants usually.
Why would you ever want this? Like, this is just there to scare people. Like, it's not.
That is a front porch Halloween costume that you dress up to scare the kids when they reach into the bowl. Like, that is it.
Like, I can.
Speaking of, when I said out loud, unfortunately, that what the mermaid was also O'Brien. What if, like, the devil is so tame in this movie that it turned out that every single woman, including the sisters at the same time that Hunk slept with, were all O'Brien in some way because she didn't feel like it was fair to any other human that they would be tricked into sexual intercourse with this person who is not.
That
his
would
real
be interesting. I think that's an interesting idea for sure. But I mean, obviously they don't care about that.
I mean, like, They didn't want him to give away his soul without really test driving it first, but like they will ruin other people's lives if he like is sleeping around too uncarefully.
Speaking of that, and we can kind of get close to sort of wrapping things up here. But speaking
we'll go
of
back
wrapping
behind our
things,
trees.
yeah. But speaking of wrapping things up, did Hunk have safe sex with every one of those women? And if not, are there any like weird Hunk babies that then turned back into like Bradley Brinkman babies once he went back to normal?
First, you're under arrest for saying weird Hunk babies.
They're all precious in their own little way.
Yes. Second, I don't know how far the magic extends. Maybe he's probably sterile.
Yeah, that's why I had to.
That's probably true. He's like a mule.
I was trying to think because he has all these extra powers on top of it of like unbreakable bones, self-cleaning teeth and everything. So he's kind of like an oven if you think about it. Like, would that mean he's either super potent or completely impotent? Like, I can't decide what would be, or would he have an on-off switch like below his taint or something? He's like, okay.
Yeah, if you're if you're the Hunk and you like you're indestructible, you have all these superpowers, but not just superpowers like your body takes care of itself automatically powers, then you definitely don't get someone pregnant unless you want to. Like that's
like the Hunk spunk only works if he wants it to.
See, you're under arrest again.
You should have heard the pin episode, Phil.
Never.
Well, I think that that's a good place to to wrap this one up. You guys have any final thoughts on Hunk, that things that we didn't get to that you desperately need to discuss?
Man, like I know there was a billion things I had in my head like when I was watching this, but as I said, I finished watching it and I immediately forgot about it. Like I do want to bring up that this movie always sat alongside this movie called Martin's Day, which I saw when I was in elementary school as a movie that I didn't believe existed for so long because no one ever talked about it. And now I'm looking online and I'm just seeing all these people. Everyone gives it 5 stars on Amazon. Like it's a 5-star movie. And this one person, and this is what I'm getting to. This one sentence sums up all my thoughts on this movie, which is 5 stars. The writer is Kay Reed, and Kay Reed writes, "Hunk isn't as bad as it should be." And that's exactly what I thought. Hunk isn't as bad as it should be. And I'm like, you're right. It isn't as bad as it should be. 5 stars.
I think there's an alternate universe where there's an executive at the USA Network who has the platter of all these kind of movies, with this kind of movie poster on a plate, and they decide like, okay, these 5 movies we're going to play forever for Americans, and they're going to think are classics and have huge nostalgia for, and these 3, and one of these 3 are Hunk, are going to be lost to time, and we're never going to play it. And I think that's where like this movie was made for that slot, for like this afternoon on USA Network or Comedy Central, and it just never crossed the desk of that executive in that crucial moment. It was never part of that package that they could buy.
Right.
And it just, instead of being this thing where like there's this weird amount of people who are like, no, I remember like a Hunk when I was a kid, and like I had it was really cool. I had a crush on O'Brien, or I the Hunk was really good looking, or like all these little things. And like, instead, no one remember. And you'd have to watch it like 17 times on cable to really have it stick in your brain for any length of time. And it just never happened in this universe. It's instead hiding behind a tree like a living statue, and no one's ever going to see it.
Because if you turned this movie on at 10 o'clock at night and you're in junior high, you are not going to get anything you're hoping to get from this movie.
You would tape it, like maybe you would tape it because you couldn't get a test the next day, and you're fast forwarding to the good parts, and it never comes. And you see that you see that that unit get enlarged, and you think they're going somewhere with this. Even if you're finding your sexuality the other way, like, oh, they're gonna give me something, and they won't. Nope. And it is so weird that this is a movie of this guy who wishes he was hot and sexy and could have sex with ladies, has none of that.
Well, this is what they could do. They could run it on like USA Up All Night, and they could advertise it as uncut because there's nothing that they need to cut out of it.
Absolutely nothing except for the Nazi symbols.
I also wanted to add that this whole movie gave me the feeling of a musical that all the songs have been cut from.
Oh yeah, I could see that. That has that vibe.
It kept because the acting is so big. There's so much like stated exposition. I kept expecting it. Now we're going to get the song. And then I was like, this would make a fun musical. This would make one of those Little Shop of Horrors-esque musicals that had like sort of a late night movie that you then adapt into a fun musical that teaches a lesson, has like a Faustian bargain. You hire 2 male leads to play the different guys. They get a duet together at the end. You have a bunch of female leads. You have a comedy sidekick. You have a roles for older actors. You have it's a musical waiting to be made. Hollywood or Broadway or whoever writes musicals, make it happen.
Yeah, let's do it.
If anyone was going to fall on this movie, like, mistakenly, like they shouldn't, but if they were, like
I did,
the odds go up if it's someone who's really into musicals.
Yeah, I think that Hunk would make a wonderful musical. Please, Hollywood, get at us. We'll get in touch with Lawrence Bassoff.
Since we're the only podcast that has done 2 episodes on Hunk, we now own the right. We now own the rights to Hunk.
Yes, that's right. But I think that's gonna do it. I think the best thing that came out of this episode is these living statues that Phil keeps sending photos of. These awful plant people that are walking around on stilts, and it's terrifying.
If you want living plants at any of your gatherings, man, there are plenty of companies that'll sell you some people.
Just remember that in general, when you think about where society is today, there are companies that will, and plenty of them, sell you people. Holy shit, they're just behind the crowd of this clearly. Oh my God, they're just smiling.
Yeah, definitely take some time and look
Northwestern, Old Dominion and Northwestern Mutual need to sit down with themselves and figure out their shit.
They're called Vine stilt walkers, by the way.
Of course they are. If you do this as a profession, it's not your fault. I get that money.
Right.
I just want to get that out there. I'm not making fun of the people. I am just terrified of what has happened in reality.
Yeah. Love the player, hate the game.
Yes.
But that's going to do it for this Rehash episode, looking back at Hunk from 1987. Thank you, Phil, so much for joining us for this episode. Do you have anything you'd like to promote? Tell people where they can find you on the internet.
Yeah, I have a couple of podcasts. One is called Deep in Bear Country. It's a Berenstain Bears podcast. It's at berenstainbearcast.com. And I just do the Berenstain Bears books, and you guys have been on. And I have a podcast called Pizza Toast with Christy Admiral, where we are going through all the episodes of the various Babysitters Club adaptations and also Babysitters Club ephemera that is out there. So those are just 2 of the things that I work on. Take a look at those.
Once again, as I mentioned to Christy when she's on an episode earlier this month, thank you for making a podcast that's specifically for me.
Yeah, we love it.
Brian, you have anything you'd like to promote?
No, we just recorded how we're not going to do anything anymore after this episode.
Yeah, that's right. That episode will drop on New Year's Eve, so come back for that little farewell for now episode. But until then, I've been Josh.
I've been Skinner.
I've been Phil.
And we predict you'll join us. If you like the show, subscribe, rate, and review us over at Apple Podcasts. We're on Twitter and Instagram at predictocast, and you can find our entire back catalog at predictocast.com. Our theme music is by Kyle Sledge. Find more of his work at soundcloud.com/geistmusic. As always, thanks for listening.